Hello everyone. So today we are going to start the second half of this sexual reproduction in flowering plants, basically the second lecture. In the first lecture we have discussed about the male reproductive system, and in this class we'll be starting with the male reproductive gamete, and after discussing about the male reproductive gamete we'll move on to the female reproductive system, right? So first of all, what we have this pollen grain. Now what is this pollen grain? It is a male gamete containing haploid number of chromosome. I guess this haploid number of chromosome term is clear to all of you because we have discussed this thing in the first chapter, as well as you already know that gametes are always haploid. That means it contains only one set of chromosome. Okay, for those who have tuned their studies from this particular video, I'll recommend them to go to those videos, at least look after them once, because those are the basic things in the first chapter, after which we are going to study these things. So male gamete is what? It contains haploid number of chromosomes and it contains two layers, right? Very basic thing. I'll show you the diagram also, but before showing the diagram, let us make a small imaginary diagram inside our mind. So this male gametes contains how many layers? Two layers. So what are the two layers? One layer is exine, one layer is this exine, and the other layer is this intine. Okay, so these are the two layers of the pollen grain. One is exine, the other one is intine. Exine is what? Exine is the outer hard layer. It is extremely resistant to temperature, enzyme, acids and alkalis. Okay, so you have to remember this one, that the outer layer of pollen grain is called what? It is called exine. It is a hard layer and it is extremely resistant to temperature, enzyme, acids and alkalis. Why they are resistant? Why it is resistant to these kind of things? It is resistant to these kind of things because it contains something called sporopollenin. It contains something called what? Sporopollenin. So sporopollenin is the one which one is responsible for making the outer layer or the exine layer hard and resistant to temperature, enzyme, acid and alkalis. Clear? On the other hand, intine, this is a continuous inner layer which is made up of what? It is made up of cellulose and pectin. It is made up of what? It is made up of cellulose and pectin. A mature pollen grain, next thing what you have to keep in your mind is a mature pollen grain contains two cells. Listen to it very carefully. A mature pollen grain contains how many cells? Two cells. One is a vegetative cell, which is a large cell and provides nutrition. Nutrition to whom? Nutrition to this generative cell, which is a small cell and floats inside the vegetative cell. Basically, this generative cell is the one which is going to go and fuse. The nucleus present inside this generative cell is going to fuse with the female gametes ovule, right? Or the egg cell that is present inside the ovule. So you have to keep this thing in your mind. What is it? That the pollen grain contains two layers. What are the two layers? Exine and intine. Repeat with me. What is it? Exine, intine. And it contains two cells, vegetative cell, generative cell. Vegetative cell is large and provides nutrition, whereas generative cell is small and floats inside the vegetative cell. Clear? I guess this to all of you. Now see the diagram. Now see the diagram. Now if you see the diagram, everything will be clear to all of you. This is a mature pollen grain. If you see this mature pollen grain, you can see the outer layer. The outer layer is called what? Exine. This is a hard layer. This is resistant to temperature, enzyme, acids and alkalis. And why it is resistant? Because this exine contains something called sporopollenin. What is it? It contains something called sporopollenin. Sporopollenin. Clear? Whereas the inner layer is called intine, and this intine is small, it is soft, and it is made up of what? It is made of cellulose and pectin. It is made up of what? It is made up of cellulose and pectin. It contains two cells. You can see the larger cell. This is the larger cell which contains a large nucleus, that's called vegetative cell. And inside this larger cell we have another small cell, and the name of this small cell is what? The name of this small cell is generative cell. So VC means vegetative cell, GC means generative cell. Clear? Now after completing this one, let us move to gynoecium and see what we have in gynoecium, or the female part of the flower. Okay, so we are going to see this gynoecium right now. So what is this gynoecium? The gynoecium represents the female reproductive part of a flower. So it is what? It is the female reproductive part of a flower. Gynoecium is what? It is the female reproductive part of the flower. Androecium is what? It is the male reproductive part of a flower. Now this gynoecium can either be monocarpellary or it can be multicarpellary. Now what is the meaning of this monocarpellary and multicarpellary? Monocarpellary means if a flower contains only one gynoecium. Listen to it. If a flower contains only one gynoecium, if it contains only one gynoecium, then it is called what? Monocarpellary. It is called what? It is called monocarpellary flower. So what is monocarpellary flower? If a flower contains only one single gynoecium, that is called monocarpellary flower. And what about multicarpellary flower? If it contains more than one gynoecium, then such kind of flowers are called what? They are called multicarpellary flowers. So if a flower contains more than one gynoecium, such kind of flowers are called what? They are called multicarpellary flowers. Clear? Now these multicarpellary flowers are of two different types. Very important thing, very important thing. These multicarpellary means what? The ones who contains more than one gynoecium. Such kind of flowers are called what? Multicarpellary flowers. If these multicarpellary flowers are present, then they are of two different types. What are the two different types? Number one is syncarpous, number two is apocarpous. What is the meaning of this syncarpous and apocarpous? Syncarpous means if the gynoeciums are separate from each other. Try to understand how many gynoeciums we have. We have more than one gynoecium. Now if each of these gynoeciums are separated from each other, they are separate from each other, that is called syncarpous. That means they are separate from each other. They are what? Separate from each other. Then they are called what? They are called syncarpous. And if they are fused with each other, then that is called apocarpous. If they are what? If they are fused with each other, they are called what? They are called apocarpous. Clear? Now on the other hand, this gynoecium contains three different things. A single gynoecium contains what? It contains three different parts: stigma, style, and ovary. Right? Stigma, style, and ovary. What is the function of stigma? The stigma receives the pollen grains. So it is the receptor of pollen grains. The stigma is what? It is the receptor of pollen grains. Now these pollen grains which are falling on the surface of the stigma needs to go to the ovary, through which it will go to the ovary. It will go to the ovary through this style. And finally inside the ovary we have something called ovules. We have something called what? We have something called ovules. Inside this ovule, those pollen grains goes. Fine. So the stigma is the receptor of pollen grain. Style is the one who transfers the pollen grain from the stigma to the ovary, and inside the ovary we have ovule where the fertilization will occur. Clear? So this is the female reproductive part, gynoecium. Next we are going to see what this gynoecium, what is the inside of this ovary looks like and how this ovule is formed. Clear? So let us go ahead and see it. Okay, so now what we are going to see? We are going to see, look inside. We are going to put our eyes inside the ovary. Remember, our gynoecium contains what? Stigma, style, and ovary. Now we are going to see inside the ovary, right? Inside the ovary, we have some structures called megasporangium. Try to understand. Inside the ovary, we have some structures called megasporangium. Those megasporangium structures is what we are going to see right now. Now, ovule is attached to the placenta by funicle. Many things are written out here. I'm going to read it once and then I'm going to show you the picture, and then there I will explain each and everything. So better to show you the picture and let me explain you what we have here. Right? So I guess you can see this picture very clearly. So this is the structure of a megasporangium. Now listen to it very carefully. This total megasporangium structure is attached to the wall of the ovary. This particular place where it is ending, obviously it is the wall of the ovary, right? So this whole structure of megasporangium is attached to the ovary with the help of a small stalk, and the name of that stalk is what? The name of this stalk is hilum. The name of this stalk is what? It is called hilum. Clear? Any problem? Great. So once more, this whole megasporangium is attached to the wall of the ovary with the help of a small stalk. The name of it is what? Hilum. Clear? After this hilum comes what? the junction between this hilum and the megasporangium, listen to it, the junction between this hilum and the megasporangium, what is it? The junction between the hilum and the megasporangium, or you can say the midpoint between the hilum and the megasporangium is called funicle. It is called what? It is called funicle. It is called what? It is called funicle. Clear? Now, if you see the structure very carefully, you will see that the ovule is present at the center, right? Ovule is present where? It is present at the center. Now, outside this ovary, what we have something called nucellus. We have something called what? We have something called nucellus. What is the function of this nucellus? Nucellus provides nutrition to this ovule. The cells that are present inside this ovule takes the nutrition from where? It takes the nutrition from nucellus. On this nucellus, we have two coverings. You can see these two coverings. So we have two coverings on it. The outer one is called outer integument. The inner one is called inner integument. Remember this one. So if we count from outside to inside, the outer one is outer integument. Then comes the inner integument. Then comes the nucellus. And finally the cells of the ovule. Clear? Now, if you see the diagram very carefully, you will see that there is a small pore. If you see the diagram very carefully, you will see that there is a small pore at the center of these two integuments. If you see these two integuments very carefully, you will see that they are not attached. They are having a small gap between them. This small gap is called what? It is called micropyle. What is it called? It is called micropyle. It is called what? It is called micropyle. So this particular end is called micropylar end, and the end opposite to this micropylar end is called chalazal end. Remember this one. Very, very important thing. Very, very important thing. First of all, hilum, the joining of this whole megasporangium with the ovarian wall is occurring by hilum. The midpoint between this hilum and this whole megasporangium is funicle. Outside of this megasporangium contains outer integument, then comes inner integument, then nucellus, which provides nutrition to whom? To the cells that are present inside the ovule. The integuments are not sealed. They have a small opening that is called micropyle. So this end is called micropylar end. This end is called, that is the end opposite to this micropylar end, is called what? It is called chalazal end. It is called what? Repeat with me. It is chalazal end. So remember, once again, when I'm saying, repeat with me. The ovule is attached to the ovarian wall, or the megasporangium is attached to the ovarian wall with the help of hilum. The junction between this hilum and megasporangium is funicle. If you talk about this megasporangium, the outer layer is outer integument, then comes inner integument, then comes nucellus, and finally the cells of the ovule. These integuments are not sealed. They have a small opening called micropyle, and this end is called micropylar end. The end opposite to it is called chalazal end. Clear? So this is what is written out here. So the ovule is attached to hilum, funicle, outer integuments, inner integuments, micropyle, chalazal end, nucellus, and embryosac. So this is the total structure of megasporangium. Next up, what we are going to see is how these megasporangium, how the cells of this megasporangium produces the ovule. Listen to it very carefully. What I said, now we are going to see that how inside this particular place, that is the ovule, how this ovule is formed. So it is very, very important, and listen to it very carefully. So finally, where we are? Finally, we are here to understand that how this ovule is formed. So remember that the inner part inside the nucellus, so the cells present inside the nucellus undergo these kind of things to produce something called a mature ovule. So that is what we are going to see here, and this process of formation of a mature ovule is called what? Megasporogenesis. The megaspore mother cell gets converted to megaspore. It undergoes meiosis and all these things. So what is happening here? We'll listen to it very carefully. So go through each of these things very carefully, one by one. So the megaspore mother cell gets converted into megaspore, right? So inside that nucellus, we have many megaspore mother cell. Out of those many megaspore mother cell, we have few cells which gets converted to what? It gets converted to something called megaspore. So this cell, what you can see here, it is a megaspore. It is what? It is a megaspore. Clear? Now, out if a single cell, they're considering here how many cells? Here we are considering only one single cell. Now this one single cell divides itself by the process of meiosis. Listen to it very carefully. What happens? It divides by the process of meiosis. So I'm taking you down here to show you a diagram. Let us suppose we have a megaspore mother cell. So this is a megaspore mother cell which is diploid. Clear? Now this megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis. So this is the first step of meiosis. This is the first step of meiosis, where two cells are produced, each containing 2n number of chromosomes. And this is the second stage of meiosis, where each of these individual cells produces two new cells. So ultimately, how many cells we have? We have 4 cells, and each of these cells contains n number of chromosomes. Each of these cells contains how many number of chromosomes? N number of chromosomes. That means they are what? Haploid. So here the cell, what you can see, is one of such those haploids. Here the cell, what you are seeing here, is any one of these 4 haploid cells. So this is what is written here. The megaspore mother cell gets converted to megaspore. It undergoes meiosis to produce 4 megaspores. Out of the 4 megaspores, only one megaspore become functional and others degenerate. So what is the meaning? That means this megaspore mother cell divides to produce 4 megaspores. Out of these 4 megaspores, only one megaspore is allowed to become functional, whereas other 3 are degenerated. Which one is the one? We cannot detect it. It is a natural phenomena. So what happens after that? So this is what is the cell you are seeing here. This is the functional megaspore what we have here, right? The nucleus then divides mitotically to produce 8 nucleus. Very sorry, not 8 cells, 8 nucleus. So this is a cell. Inside this cell, we have one nucleus. This nucleus divides mitotically to produce 2. From 2 to it forms 4. From 4, it forms 8. It forms 8 nucleus at the end. After forming these 8 nucleus, what happens? 3 reaches the chalazal end. Remember which one is the chalazal end? Opposite to the micropylar end. 3 reaches the micropylar end and 2 at the middle. You can see this diagram. So 3 comes down. This end is called micropylar end. 3 nucleus goes at the top. This is called chalazal end. And 2 of them stays at the center. After this, cells are formed. You can see this complete diagram of a complete female ovule. In this complete female ovule, we have a big cell. Inside this big cell, we have 3 cells at this end, 3 cells at this end, and we have 2 nucleus at the center. These 3 cells are called antipodal cells or simply antipodals. The 3 cells that are present at the bottom, 2 of them are called synergid and 1 of them is an egg cell. And the 2 nucleus that is present at the center, they are called polar nuclei. So synergids, 2 synergid and 1 egg cell is found where? It is found in the micropylar end. And 3 antipodals are found where? They are found in the chalazal end. Clear? So a single complete mature ovule contains how many cells? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this bigger one, that is 7. How many cells it has? It has 7 cells. And how many nucleus it has? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So it contains 8 nucleus. So this stage of a mature embryo is called 7-cell 8-nucleate stage. Clear? It is called what? It is called 7-celled 8-nucleate stage. Fine. So this is the whole process of megasporogenesis, and after this whole process of megasporogenesis, this is what is found. So today we have seen the structure of pollen grain as well as we have also seen the structure of mature ovule. Remember, in the pollen grain, what I have said, that the generative cell contains a nucleus that is called generative cell nucleus that is going to go and fertilize the egg cell that is present inside the ovule. So inside this ovule, inside this whole 7 number of cells, where this generative cell is going to come and fuse, it is going to come and fuse with this egg cell only. Clear? So what happens to the rest of the structure? What is the process of fertilization? How this fertilization occurs? We'll see in the next class. till now what we have completed with? We have completed totally with the pre-fertilization event of the flowering plant sexual reproduction. So here we are discussing about what? We are discussing about the sexual reproduction in flowering plant. So for the sexual reproduction in flowering plants, we have discussed the pre-fertilization event. In the next class, we'll be discussing about the fertilization, and finally after that, post-fertilization events will come. Clear? So thank you all of you. If you have any doubts, you can ask those questions in the comments below. Till then, enjoy studying, read all these things. I hope this thing will help you to understand many things, clear your concepts, and see you in the next video. Thank you all of you.